exciting. I like the pump-up music as we come in. It's setting the stage for this great panel. So I'm super excited to be talking about Asia Rising and the next generation of AI startups, because I think we've got an amazing set of folks here who are really experienced, have seen a lot in terms of the startups that have come out over the last few decades and at the beginning of building a really new venture. So I want to start us off by asking you to tell us a little bit. You've done some amazing things. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction of all the cool things that you've been up to, what you're super passionate about now?
Thank you very much. INSEAD graduate, 2004. After that, I started a TV network called Asian Food Channel, and I sold it to Food Network. And that was 2013 when the ecosystem in Southeast Asia was very small. And then I decided, why don't we just be a venture capitalist? Because clearly it's easier to be a venture capitalist. And then 10 years later, Open Space, we ran $800 million. We've done Gojek, we've done Del Bonito, we've done Choke, we've done Redmart. Basically, if you live in Singapore, you've used most of the services that we've been very lucky to invest. Our firm is 30 people across 6 countries. We only invest in Southeast Asia, and we depend on folks like yourself to demystify India. And last but not least, I cook pizzas in my office.
Yeah. Hi. Excited to be here. Quick one, been founded twice. Took another 3 companies as a founding member to exit. Decided somehow to be in VC, but not accidentally. I think for me it was a choice. The deliberate choice was, and I tell this answer to everyone, which is, after being a founder, you realize either you like working with people or you don't. And if you don't, you decide to become a venture capitalist. We invest across 2 funds, a venture fund which does seed to Series B, a pre-seed fund which does very early formative checks. We pride ourselves for having been the earliest investors in 6 $5 billion plus companies, including the likes of Razorpay in India, which is the largest payments provider, Ola, which is the largest cab company, Daily Hunt, which is the largest media company. And we have been actively investing across the Indo-US corridor, and I would rather like to call it the Asia-US corridor. And yeah, super excited about everything people are building in enterprise AI.
And your firm used to be called Matrix Ventures, so if there's anything, that's a huge brand.
Yes, so we were set up in business by Tim and Paul, who started Matrix. We were earlier known as Matrix Partners India. Last year, all 3 across China, US, and India, we decided to rebrand. So now we're known as E47.
So this is Bruce, co-founder and CEO of SuperAI. I'm the only person representing the startups here. And these are our potential investors.
Perfect.
So very special, quick introduction of myself. So I'm also a PhD candidate at AMS on the School of Computing. Well, I'm looking at my age, shouldn't be a PhD student, but you know, AI has just started a new life for everybody.
Yeah.
So I decided to take back the role as a student, learn more about AI and see how AI can bring the next generation of AI startups.
I love that. I think that's a great jumping off point for us in terms of thinking about how is AI creating new opportunities. So where I want to kick off our conversation is that I think that, over the last few decades, where we see a lot of innovation come from in Asia is from constraints, where we're leapfrogging technologies where, for example, super apps, cashless, mobile first, where we're able to actually innovate out of the constraints that we're seeing. So I'd love to kick off our conversation by talking about what are the constraints do you think that we have here that create opportunities for AI in Asia right now? Kian, I'd love to start with you. You're the first investor into Gojek. You've been investing in a number of companies in this region that's innovating out of constraints. Where do you see the opportunity?
I mean, I'll start even further back from there. Was like nobody believed that you could start up a TV network from scratch, right? And we used a total of $23.5 million of capital over 10 years to make a TV network that was more popular in Malaysia than ESPN. And one of the things I never tell anybody was that we never had a single piece of broadcasting equipment for the entire 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, we kind of had to figure out this concept of like cloud-based broadcasting, which is basically ship your tapes over there. Today everybody does that. And I bring that example up simply because I think that a restriction of resources clarifies and crystallizes, and also organizationally, we were just talking about it, means that certain decisions are justified. If you've got all the money in the world, you wouldn't have done a truncated population of mixture of experts. You wouldn't have done some low-level orchestration, and that's DeepSeek when they first came out. And then the beauty about it is they made that architectural choice because they needed to do that, and now everybody's learning from them. So I'm a big believer of not having too much capital, having the capital at the right time, because frankly, it does cause probably perverse incentives and wrong decision making.
So I think broadly agree, and constraints do well. Right? Where I come from in India, we have seen this play out over multiple decades in the space tech ecosystem. Right? Our space mission was probably 1/20th the size of NASA, and is today probably around 1 in 5 globally who do what they do. I think constraints do birth a lot more innovation. We've seen this in the past. I do slightly disagree with the AI bit on what it means.
Yeah.
Because we've seen this now multiple times where somehow because of this post-era also, it's still the same story, infinite capital, which is there in counterparts for founders to invest, it does few things. Right? So if you think of, let's say, AI, you could be innovating, going deeper on architectures, building new things, but just when you're trying to do that against someone who has infinite capital, who's not paying attention to, because they don't need to, in a market where hyper-accelerated go-to-market is most critical, right?
So you think that it's actually going to potentially work against us in terms of AI?
Yes,
Where do you
no.
look for opportunities in that case?
See, I think where you look for opportunities with AI, and obviously founders can attest to it better, is I would actually think of it in a flip way. I would think of saying that earlier with technology, you had to think of software being an enabler.
Yeah.
Whereas today, entrepreneurs and founders have the opportunity to go after anything, right? Not that I keep hearing, all of us keep hearing this, that hey, it's replacing labor, it's replacing this. I would rather flip the argument completely and say it's a great wedge for founders to go after the large industries which always exist. Like, nothing is stopping you from being an AI native, AI first company, because you can be, the incumbent won't be able to be at that fast, to not think only technology as selling software, to actually say that, hey, what does it mean if I have to build an AI native insurer, right? And those opportunities are then so regional. Those opportunities are so nuanced and they have such underpinnings in each region, India, South Asia, everywhere, and they're not small opportunities, right? Because selling software in these regions can be a small opportunity. But going after those big, meaty businesses, big, large profit pools, is not a small opportunity. So I think constraints, plus the fact that AI gives you that level and leverage to use that technology as a wedge, to not be just a technology business, to actually be all industry, whatever industry you want to go after. Do that.
I love that. I think that's a perfect segue. Bruce, I mean, you're actually targeting to help productivity for businesses in Southeast Asia. Can you tell us a little bit about your view here?
For sure. So first of all, I want to anchor Akash's point about the difference of selling software and selling AI solutions. I think one of the constraints which we face in Asia is there's not a very strong foundation for SaaS, not like in Europe or US where organizations that use software as a group and perform really well to utilize the functions of software very well. The constraint about the the organization not using software very well actually gives a good opportunity, good avenue for AI. Because AI is going to use the software for you. You just have to treat AI as your assistant. So this is just like how from Asia is not taking the credit route, but leapfrog to the cashless. Definitely, I see that the same huge opportunity lives in Asia, not anywhere else, because of the weak foundation of SaaS services. So that's number one. Number two, I see another point definitely to the entire Southeast Asia is the fragmentation.
Is what?
Fragmentation.
Fragmentation.
Fragmentation. So the market is not a holistic market like India, like China, like US, or even some other big regions. because of the fragmentation, because of cultural difference, multi-ethnic, multilingual, AI actually play a very, very good role to, to mediate the problem of fragmentation because of the versatile, linguistic talent and cultural understanding. That solve a lot of more problem by unifying fragmentation into a unified market.
Yeah, so let's pick up there in terms of thinking about what you've seen in patterns for how startups are building, especially AI startups are building in Asia. What we've seen typically for a long time is sort of mostly thinking about the copying model and then localizing for exactly some of these localized opportunities. Is this something that looks different as you see startups that are building in this space, or do you think there's a new opportunity here in terms of leading in a different direction with all of the key particular and unique challenges that we see in each market?
So I clickbaited everyone, hopefully, by saying that 90% of all pure play AI startups in, I certainly can't speak for India, but Southeast Asia will be in Singapore. And so I'll leave that thought first. I think what we're seeing in Southeast Asia is really a two-phased approach. I think we're seeing increasingly more pure play AI startups here, but there will come a time when AI-enabled or AI-powered startups will happen. I'll elaborate that shortly.
And can I push you a little bit? What do you mean by pure play versus AI powered?
So, no names, but 50% of the world's AI researchers are from China. I'm absolutely convinced of that because ChatGPT just told me that, right? But it is quite true. And if you look at the geopolitics today, historically, a large number of very talented Chinese individuals will go to San Francisco and the US, but we've got an orange-haired man in the White House. And
no idea what you're talking about.
And if you're a Chinese researcher, look, I wouldn't be surprised if you're a huge, revolutionary large language model, 私人公司 just in Hangzhou, and the state government goes, oh, by the way, going forward, you're going to work according to our mandate, and some of your employees will be monitored. It's not necessarily the kind of private sector entrepreneurship that you may have signed up for as little as 10 years ago. And we've got this geopolitics. So I always joke that there's two pictures on my office, Xi Jinping, Donald Trump. I kiss them every day. I really do. They're very great. It's really good. Not like China, but we love Singapore. So great. And we have a business because of that. See, I think people laugh. We have an obligation to entertain. Don't we have an obligation to entertain? Yeah. Okay? We're moving the farm in the right direction. And that's why it will start here. Now, data point, sorry, just to elaborate. There is a team, and I can't tell you where, I can't tell you who, full-blown, all-star Chinese team with Haidilao Gold-Star memberships in Singapore, building an abstraction layer for GPUs, financed by Hongshan, not even me, they didn't want to take my money, right? Bought papers in Chinese, globally ranked on GitHub one of the best, hiding out in Singapore. Tiny Llama came out of Singapore. Again, we hosted a party of AI startup researchers, SUTD, and large number of them came from China. We think that, that is the first phase that we'll see in Asia, and boy, are we paying attention to that trend at OpenSpace. I'll elaborate the second point later because I'm monopolized. Yeah.
I think a funny anecdote that comes to mind from that inspiring or copy thing is basically, I remember when I was a founder, this is early 2010s, in India, and which was a pretty maturing venture ecosystem. Investors used to have a team called web investing and mobile investing, right? That's how, if you want to get a glimpse of how unimaginative the ecosystems in venture people can be, that's how it is, right? But if you think of it, what does it mean? Every technology leap, when it happens, the first imaginative inspirations actually happen in the West. And you can't change that somehow. I strongly believe it doesn't change. through multiple technology cycles, we've seen that. So Uber was the first interface imagination where someone said that, hey, you have to raise your hand to hail a cab, don't do it, card on file, do it on mobile, right? The first imaginations happened there. But then, when you have to turn that into a scaled up beast, right, that happens in China, that happens in India, right? That's the reason why we have super apps. US does not have a super app ecosystem, right? I think it's going to play out in a similar fashion, even in this case,
I like
right?
that.
Wherein, yes, we'll have researchers in China and India, everything will keep happening, but the first big wave of reimagining interfaces, reimagining the consumer experience, will potentially get sparked over there. Like, and it has, right? That's what OpenAI did.
That's where it started.
That's where it started, right? But then, this Gen 2, Gen 3 is where this field will start forming.
And doubling down on that data. Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah, so we think about innovations, especially on the foundation side, like foundation models. And a lot of people think that it comes from the West side, from the US first, especially Silicon Valley. I think generally that's true, but the differences, the cost, how DeepSeek, how Queen, how the wall from ByteDance can lower the cost with similar kind of capabilities. And this is definitely the first choice for any developers who want to scale. This is how the cost itself is a major driving force of innovation. So that's how I think the original way of thinking of leading and innovation definitely has already changed because cost is the key driver. The second one is on application level. I think the entire Asia is pretty strong in terms of adoption, in terms of exploration and exploration about exploitation about the technologies. This is how you see a lot of application level, startup actually coming from the Asia side. Like some of the very cool apps like Manus, like Lava, the new idea actually, the new paradigm of thinking is coming from Asia.
And that would still be, in my opinion, a pure play hardcore team of people who are building a service that could be used around the world, right? And that's like a Silicon Valley kind of prospect for London, hopefully in Singapore.
Yeah. And so at Sapiens, where are you betting in terms of where you can lead?
Well, it's some of our products still at the stealth mode. But what I can tell is we want to, first of all, we want to build the next generation of space and community.
Okay.
We want to really bring social onto the table. So where's a lot of people asking me where's the AI version of Facebook? Where's the AI version of Instagram, Snapchat? A lot of very new application level cool things are not coming just yet. We're still at age of productivity. And the social features, I think, for the next 2-3 years will be a very strong, very fierce arena. And Asia might have the chance to take the lead.
All right. So where I want to go next is thinking about, I think, what is maybe on the minds of a lot of folks in the room. There's been an amazing amount of noise to signal, or hype to signal when it comes to AI. What do you guys look for in terms of figuring out when it's like a real AI startup, or it's a startup that is actually, say, doubling down on AI, and what you're looking for in terms of the moat? There's been a lot of hypotheses out there, right? Like, is the moat in an AI startup really the data? Is it, how quickly you execute? Is it something about branding or leadership? Where are you guys making the bets in terms of where this is going to come from and how we cut through the noise? Akash, I'll start with you this time.
Okay, so on the hype versus reality piece, I have a very interesting anecdote. Like, I say everyone knows the movie, right? Everything, everywhere, all at once, right? Some similar juxtaposition of those. That's the AI hype cycle.
Yeah.
It is hype and real at the same time, right? And this is very unique again to AI. I would say today on the underlying technology, we are probably at the iPhone 5 or 5S, which is probably the best that ever came out from the iPhone stable. On the application side, we're still probably at an iPhone 2 or 3. Right? When it comes to penetration and actually extracting business value and economic value out of AI in truest sense, and not just money going in and just very experimentative revenue, I think probably we are in the early days of AWS or Cloud. So that's where we are. So it is everything, everywhere all at once. When it comes to moats, very frankly, I think, at least having been a founder before, I think moats emerge over time. Right? Moats for anyone who's building app. If I was, my only 2 cents of advice would be if you're a founder, anyone asks you what's the moat, tell them I don't know. And I don't give 2 hoots about it. It will turn up when it turns up. Right? It cannot. You cannot manifest a moat from day 0. There is only one true moat, by the way. The only true moat in venture or in a company is NFX. Pure NFX is the only known moat to mankind. There is no other moat which is sustainable beyond that. Brand moats or brand NFX comes second, a distant second. How would you orchestrate NFX on day 0? You can't if you're building something. It shows up, it happens, right? Everything else that people talk about, data moats, everything, time and again, over the past 4 or 5 decades, we have seen those are not moats. They don't last, they don't work. That's the reason every era, every cycle, new founders come, they build new companies. The only moats that you can't dislodge are NFX, right? So as an investor, I actually don't care about it. The only thing I look at is, are founders having that extreme maniacal pace of shift, right? Because that's the only way a moat turns up in business.
The moat is you.
The moat
Yeah,
is
the
you.
moat is you, it's
Moat
the
is you,
founder.
right?
And I think that's a good point because it changes over time. I work really closely with OpenAI and Grab on figuring out how do we find these use cases where AI can actually deliver value. And I think that where we were even a year ago is actually different from what we think the moat could be right now.
We are different. Like I shit my pants. I was in a short break for a week.
Yeah.
Before I left, until that time I came back, the world changed.
That's true. The world changes fast every week. Yeah, what about you, Ian?
Well, the world changes fast, therefore it's reasonable to be unreasonable, right? And can I answer the second question? Is if I was a founder today, what kind of a business I would do, right?
And if you have stories and examples, even better.
Yeah,
I
I mean, we have 17 minutes, right? So, I think as a venture capitalist, you're in the business of backing unreasonable human beings, right? And let's drive it from the thing, right? I was the first angel investor into a very simple business, Choke, restaurant reservations. You guys in Singapore use it, Choke. I've sold it to Grab, so now that I'm not a shareholder, I can talk against it, right? How would I reimagine Choke? Well, it could be a pure agentic thing. Right? So can you imagine, you just go, hey, I want a restaurant reservation. By the way, I'm going to spend $500, guys, and I've got 5 people, give me some reservations. Then the agent goes, and by the way, there's now an API to use the Choke platform to do the reservation. But then on the other side, the AI agent may go to these restaurants and go like, if I have a bunch of big hitters, would you be interested in that? I'm going to WhatsApp you when that's ready to go. And so you probably need a small sales force to build the relationships. But the agentic, right? Now you're going like, Bruce, you should totally do this, right? Because and then you work in partnership with Choke because that's the restaurant reservation platform. Here's the interesting thing. You know what's the problem we had with Choke? We could never charge more than like $2-3 per reservation because we never knew what the take was. You go to the restaurant and say, I'm going to bring a guy, I'm going to guarantee you spend $500 per person. Can I get 10% of that? Oh, by the way, you give me 15%, that guy's yours. I'm not going to tell you that. Do you know what the take rate of that business is? Do you know what the number of people you need to make this thing? He's nodding really hard. Can somebody please build this? Because I will, can I swear? I will come and see you. Why is that happening? Well, we've been waiting for a long time. The LLMs out here, the cost per token goes down by 2 orders of magnitude. We're very close to an AI girlfriend, by the way. I got my team to do it. So right now it's about $34,000 to train him or her, unless you use one of the packages. So it's more expensive than the actual human being. But let's see where Sam goes I mean, look, I use that to get the giggle, but it's true. You think that it's not going to happen? You think that somebody's not going to figure out and say, oh, hey, you're an attractive human being, give me the rights to digitally clone you, we're just going to scrape your APIs, you own the damn thing, and then we'll run it for you? I would pay $159 a month for...
That's it?
Yeah, I think it's 150. That's expensive. Netflix is 19. Right? So your cost to serve has to be like $60. Right now we think it's about, $3,500, $4,000 for electricity. So we just need one more order of magnitude now. We're 300, another time 30. digital human beings are going to turn up in 2 years' time. So my point being is that the platform is set, right? So we've got wonderful human beings making the platforms, but in the next 18 to 24 months, a lot of people are going to use these platforms to reimagine existing things, relationships, restaurant booking, you name it, personal assistance. So I think the agentic thing is very interesting. Now, would I pay 100 times revenues for that business? Maybe not, but I'd pay a nice number. That business could be worth a lot of money.
Yeah,
even more in India.
And I think the only slightly controversial addition to that piece I would add is, I would go one step further. I would say that, hey, why do you want to build a booking platform? Right? Why do you want to solve that? Eat it, take the entire thing. Build the next Domino's, build the next McDonald's, build the next landmark, right? You can do that, you have that opportunity. Now, obviously, it seems slightly controversial because you're going after the small and medium entrepreneur or restaurateur. But hey, if you're a founder, if you have large ambition, that is at play now. You couldn't have done that earlier for two reasons. One, and I used to say this when I was a founder, I used to tell my business teams that, hey, the time that I respect the most is my developer's time. Right? I'm not going to ship a single line of code where I don't know what happens, right? Because that time is precious. Today, and I won't, and actually, because I've been a developer myself all my life, I still do it every day. That time and value for shipping code is going down. I think it's already 110 for the best developers. I think it will go down to 100. Wow. And if it goes down to 100, imagine all the things that you couldn't do earlier if you were building a business. You can do all of them now. There's nothing which is stopping you.
Code is not the limiting factor.
Code is not the rate limiting factor anymore. And if that's not the case, go after large profit.
I love this. Like AI basically increases the kinds of problems we can solve, increase your ambition.
Like I used to hate paying for Salesforce. Right? I still have to pay it as a founder. I used to hate paying for it. But I used to say, hey, what is it? It's Gmail plus Excel. And for that I have to pay because my developer is busy building something else.
Yeah.
Right? He is busy building my core platform.
Yeah.
But you don't need to do that anymore. I actually coded my own agentic CRM for my business over the last 45 years.
Yeah. Bruce, so now we've heard from a lot of the investors. You're of course in the trenches actually trying to build out an AI business. So where are you trying to build out your moat? How are you thinking about this problem as you build out your own venture?
So first of all, when I think about the moats, the definition of moats at AI world is very different from the internet world. For example, you talk about search. Nobody is doing. Every AI tool can do search now. It's not a really home garden for Google anymore. And if you talk about just like the services like chose, like living, services, e-commerce, all the AI agents are able to do that. So it's not a center of traffic anymore. It's not a source of traffic anymore. So I definitely think that on the AI paradigm, all the founders and companies have to transform ourselves first. We have to be a very important, product creator, also an influencer myself. Same as how OpenAI is. Sam Altman is trying to be very proactive on X account every day, and OpenAI has to launch their weekly updates on their models to gain the attention of the market. Product innovations, attentions, and traffic, putting all together could be a new definition of the mode. And I definitely think that despite all the changes in terms of the use cases, the user base are still very important. If you have a strong user base, if you have fast iteration of the product, if you get all the attention, you keep yourself on the table, on the table of the poker game, you still have a chance to compete with other players. The later stage you enter the table is more difficult because the competition just gets more and more fierce. So that's how I understand our model.
Okay, awesome. So I know that we are wrapping up our panel. So I want to end with one question, and then I'll open up to the audience to get your most exciting questions
This is
here,
great.
to spark the conversation. Where I want to go is your most controversial predictions for thinking about what changes when we invest in AI native startups or when we build out these AI native startups in terms of the unit economics. Do the scaling laws change in a different way that make you think differently about how you might invest as an investor, or how you might think about what you invest your capital in those first early stages? How should we be building these businesses differently? I mean, this is something that I think about a lot. I'm building out an AI venture lab at INSEAD to think about how do we build these AI first businesses. What's your take on how this changes the unit economics?
Start with me. So let's talk about the cost analysis first. So it used to be a lot of spending from the startups like us will be on human resources, will be product innovations. But right now, if you want to grow a consumer app for a large audience, the major cost is the GPU cost. It is up to, from our calculation, up to 70 to 80% of the cost going to the GPU, which is very, very contradictory if we talk about the fast access, broad adoption of AI. That becomes a hurdle for AI companies to grow their revenue, profit, and user adoption.
Okay.
So how we want to solve the problem, potentially also a call to collaboration with local government and industry leaders, is try our best to lower the cost of GPUs.
So your take is really that this is actually going to make it even harder for startups because you have these GPU costs. Okay, Akash.
I think I never worry about costs. Right? I don't worry about costs when it comes to technology because that's the deflationary nature of technology. It always will account and solve for itself. It has never been different in any era. There is no reason it's going to be different this time. So I think in terms of margins, the only controversial take is we're going to see far fewer companies which only live in the world of bits or which are technology only, which would now start looking like $5 billion plus, which in venture investing is like a benchmark. Far fewer of those. Right? It's almost start to take a big barbell, where at one end you'll have companies like OpenAI and Snowflakes and all of those, and then you'll see far fewer $5 billion plus companies. Right? But at the same time, the entire listed entities or equities world is up for disruption and up for founders to take. And hence you're going to see far more $5 billion plus companies which are at the intersection of both bits and atoms. Right? That's my take. It's going to be harder for just companies working in the world of bits, and for a very principled reason. Right? I'll throw it out to everyone, which is, how can you imagine me paying, so you wrote a piece of code, right? That's what SaaS was, and continues to be. You wrote a few lines of code, and you want to capitalize that for time infinity. Just doesn't make sense. Right? It doesn't make sense to me, at least. And I think with more and more people, and everyone in this room who has agency and who has taste, getting to start building code and software on their own, your debt models are going to get weak.
So what about you, Ken?
Well, you have to look back 500 years ago, 500 million years ago, when the Cambrian explosion happened, when suddenly the primordial soup created so many animals, right? And I think with any adoption of technology, mobile was a certain point, and then there was a Cambrian moment, blah, 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 there was a Cambrian moment. We're not at the Cambrian moment of AI just yet, so let me explain why. I think your point about cost is absolutely correct. And the reason for that, and I'll give it a very specific example. When we invested into a fledgling e-commerce, ride-hailing business with 300 motorcycle riders, you know what was the one biggest thing that we had, the problem was? It wasn't the app, it wasn't the system. I mean, the app was crashing, everything was crashing, right? But like the mobile phone cost $300. And of course, if you were Grab and you have a car and it's $300, it was an afterthought. When you had a rider who just spent $4,000 on a motorcycle, but then has to spend about 8% of his cost on a mobile phone, that was the limiting factor. We had to call Xiaomi and try to convince Hugo Barrow to give us a bulk discount. What happened in 12 months later? Mobile phones dropped to $100. We didn't have that problem, and the rest is history. There's always a time when the economics work. And the other thing that I learned from some esteemed colleagues is that the reason why generative AI is essentially synonymous with the word AI is because the cost differential is not 10x, not 100x, it's like infinity x, right? Just ask ChatGPT, how much would a robo-taxi versus a human being taxi, how much would you save? Estimates around 30 to 35% because you get rid of the human being, right? 30 to 35%, would we wake up for that? Only Alphabet would do way more, right? Because after you do that, the network effects, the capex, the regulatory issue, can I swear again? You're screwed, right? Generative AI, the cost structure, right? Always do things 10x lower. That thing is dangerous. And so I think the disintermediation of knowledge or the automation of knowledge is now synonymous with AI because it's a cost advantage thing. And that's why suddenly, I mean, you think about it, before the 14th of March 2023, which is when ChatGPT 4 was launched, to me that's the Jesus Christ moment, right? And everyone started putting in 150 billion of capex. Before that, go read every single quarterly report. I've done it, right? Because I'm going to talk to high net worth individuals at UBS about why you were not smart to invest in NVIDIA before 14th of March 2023. Because Jensen never said AI was Gen AI. It was neuro-linguistic programming. What was his previous bet? I'm going to power autonomous cars. I'm going to buy ARM. This revolution, this Gen AI knowledge revolution, is less than 2 years old.
So
guys,
what it allows
we're going to
is
start.
Lots of smaller checks going to a lot more bigger ideas.
And
That's
it's
sort of what
about
I'm hearing from you
creativity.
guys.
It's about creativity.
Yeah.
Creativity. It's really about that. We're about to get the Cambrian moment.
I love this. So I want to see if there's any questions from the audience that's burning to ask these panelists before we wrap up here. Any questions that you want to ask these panelists about thinking about the next generation of AI startups in Asia? Great. I see a hand right there.
Oh, look at the lights.
Yeah, that actually helps.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, I do have like a question to like all the panelists. So I understand right now that sometimes when it comes like finding like AI startups and all, sometimes we have like go through like not just like the regulations, sometimes I restrict law, like something like and I also understand there's going to be like AI, it's always be AI hallucinations where sometimes like the training and testing the data the accuracy will be quite low and sometimes AI can also like cause risk as well.
Yeah.
So I wonder how you like, if especially you want to find your AI stuff, so you want like find the new ones, especially now given that now there's AI agents, now there's also like artificial general intelligence as well, and how like you guys be able to like manage this kind of issues, especially
Is the
when
question around AGI and how they predict artificial general intelligence to?
It's not really, it's like especially how like management of like some like things like hallucination or regulatory problems when it comes to like getting this like AI stuff as
Got
well.
it. So regulatory problems, the challenges that come from adopting Gen AI, how do you assess them as you think about building and investing into these startups?
Seek forgiveness and not punishment.
I think the first step will be non-mission critical, right? So medical diagnosis would be kind of terrible in a hallucinatory system. And then you can always put a human in the loop. So that, when he screws up, you can hang the human, but not the AI. So that's actually quite easily solved.
So the idea about human and AI integration need to have a new protocol. The idea is how you can have human looking at the most important milestones, and also the way of human AI interaction should be bidirectional. So that means besides like human taking the loop, also taking the checks together with agents.
And humans hallucinate as much as AI.
Humans are going to be around for a while.
All
You
right,
got to get
well,
somebody to hang.
It sounds like, I think that lots of questions, of course, open. Super fun to talk about this. Thanks so much for the questions. We'll be around. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.